Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's call. This is the OSEP Monthly Technical Assistance Call 2020 Determinations. At this time, I would like to introduce Greg Core with the Office of Special Education Programs, the Director of the Monitoring and State Improvement Planning Division. Greg?
Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome to our June call as we get near the end of the school year and turn to other virtual activities in my household. A lot of our planned activities just aren't happening this year. So the camps are closed and some of the other things that we'd had planned are closed. So we're kind of making it up as we go along here. But I hope everyone is doing well and that your families are staying healthy and adapting to this new set of circumstances. So as you have probably gathered, we are going to be talking about our state performance plan, annual performance review responses, and 616 determinations. And we are on track to be releasing those to you later on this month. And I want to give a special shout out to our staff in MSIP who have been working so hard really since these rolled in on February 1st to conduct all the preliminary reviews, to work with you at the state level on your clarifications, and then do the final reviews and analysis. And a particular shout out to Jennifer Wolfsheimer, who's the facilitator of that group. We call it the Data Implementation Team, but the Data IT is in charge of all things SPP APR, along with Angela Tanner Dean, who is the Associate Division Director working at her side, and Christine Pilgrim, who also now, congratulations, is an Associate Division Director. And this trio has been working very, very closely together to get us to completion of this whole process. I want to especially thank them for their many, many hours during the normal workday, and I know evenings and weekends to get this work done. So today we're going to walk you through the SPP APR response and determination process. We want to be sure that when that comes to you, that you know what to expect, how to interpret the documents that you'll be getting when they actually arrive. Before we get to the main content of our call, I have three fairly short announcements. The first one is on the period of availability waiver. Under the CARES Act, I guess the full title is the Corona Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, but we call it the CARES Act. The Secretary of Education was authorized to consider waivers to extend the period of availability for your IDEA funds. And you know that under IDEA, under the Tydings period, your funds are available for obligation for 27 months, and then for liquidation by the end of that year. So under this waiver provision, your state can request a 1-year extension of the period of availability. So for instance, the federal fiscal year 2018 Part B funds, which would normally expire for obligation on September 30th and for liquidation on December 30th, that period then would be extended by 1 year so that you would have an additional year to both to obligate and then to expend all those funds. We know this is something that many states have asked for under the current pandemic situation. So we earlier this week were able to send out the letter describing this waiver opportunity and a template which you can fill out and submit electronically. We have a mailbox I'll read out the address for it, but that should also have come to you in some emails that were sent to you earlier this week. But the mailbox is IDEA, all caps, WAIVER, lowercase, so IDEA waiver at ed.gov. And we have set up an expedited, let me try that word again, an expedited process for reviewing your waiver application and hopefully approving that. We're certainly getting back to you soon. It's a pretty simple process. We want to be able to turn these around quickly to extend this additional 1 month opportunity to you and your states. And so this is available to SEAs and their subrecipients for LEAs. So that's our period of availability waiver. We're grateful that we were able to get that out this week. Second item for an update is monitoring, our differentiated monitoring system. As a part of OSER's Rethink process, we conducted an examination of our DMS, differentiated monitoring and support process, that we have been using over the last several years. We solicited feedback from the field in a number of virtual and face-to-face conversations. You remember back when we used to be able to have face-to-face conversations. I hope that some of you were able to participate in those. During those meetings with you, we had some good conversation, good input and feedback about our process. Based on the feedback as well as our own internal evaluation, we've developed a revised process for monitoring and support, which we're calling DMS 2.0. We had originally intended to roll this out to the field in April, but then with the pandemic, we made a determination to delay this until a later point. We've had some internal conversations and have decided that we will take this up again in August. So there will be a rollout call, a webinar in August, and we will send you out some notification in advance of that call, so you can be sure to set that time aside. In the call, we will be explaining that we will begin full implementation of our new framework in October 1st of 2020. So more details will follow, but I wanted to let you know that this is coming up in the not so distant future. And then the last thing I've got here is also as part of our Rethink process, we have looked at our state performance plan, annual performance report process, and measurement table. Again, we solicited input from the field, and based on this, have developed a proposed information collection that was out for public review and comment during a 60-day period that closed in February. We have completed the review of the comments and developed our responses, and that is being finalized right now. And we are anticipating that, excuse me, we are anticipating that this will go back in the Federal Register for a 30-day comment period next week. And then we will review any final comments that come in and want to have this whole package approved before the current package expires, which is in August of this year. So August is going to be a big month for us. So be looking out for a notification that will come from us when the information collection package is available for the 30-day review in the Federal Register. And that's the last of my 3 updates. I'm going to turn the call over to Angela Tanner-Dean.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thanks to everyone for joining our call today. Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure.
Yep,
Yeah,
sound great.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you. So as we do every year, we want to share some important information with you prior to issuing determinations. So today during the call, we will review our timeline, describe each of the documents that will be posted for your state in the EMAPS SPP APR reporting tool, and discuss what will occur after determinations are issued. Sorry, next slide, I forgot to say. This information should take no more than about 15 minutes to cover, so we should have plenty of time at the end for questions. I will be primarily responsible for walking us through the slides, but Jennifer and Christine are also on the line, as Greg mentioned, and may chime in if I missed something or during the Q&A portion of our call today. So in terms of notification, we expect that determinations will be issued on June 23rd for Part C and on June 25th for Part B. Greg will send an email to the chief state school officers and the lead agency directors, while the state special ed directors and Part C coordinators will be notified by PSC when the EMAPS SPP APR tool is open and determinations and supporting documents are ready to be viewed. Next slide. In the EMAPS SPP APR tool, states will be able to review the final OSEP responses and required actions as applicable for each indicator. The actions that a state is required to take are in two places, and this is consistent with how it has been for the past several years. Actions related to the correction of findings of noncompliance can be found in the OSEP response section of the indicator, and any other actions that the state is required to take are in the required actions section of each indicator. It is also important for states to review the introduction section in the SPP APR, which may also include OSEP response or required action information. And this is definitely the case for anything related to indicator 17, B17, and indicator C11. In addition to the OSEP responses and required actions, states will find the following attachments in the SPP APR reporting tool. The RDA matrix that is individualized for each state and includes the state's determination, the state's RDA percentage that is based on the compliance score and the results score. As a reminder, for Part B and Part C states, this percentage is 50% results and 50% compliance. And for the entities, the RDA percentage is 60% compliance and 40% results. The matrix also includes the scoring on compliance indicators and other compliance factors, the scoring on results indicators and other results factors. In addition to the matrix, states will find the data rubric that shows how OSEP calculated the state's timely and accurate state reported data, as well as the state's 618 data. A PDF entitled Dispute Resolution 2018-2019 will also be available. This PDF includes the IDEA section 618 data that OSEP used to calculate the state's timely complaint decisions and timely due process hearing decisions. And for a very few states, I believe it might be down to 2 states at this point, there will also be attached a worksheet that summarizes any old C9 or B15 findings of noncompliance. But again, that only affects a couple of states. Additionally, states will find the state's determination letter, a DocX version of the APR, We want to note that this docx version that you will see within the reporting tool is the same format that has been available to you previously throughout this review process within EMAPS. This version within the tool will not have the rich text. It will still have the cascading questions visible. It will have X's in some places, but note that this is not the version that will be used for public release, but you will have access to a docx when the system opens back up on the 23rd or the 25th. And then finally, how the department made determinations document that you all have, I'm sure, copies of on your bedside table for your reading pleasure, that provides a detailed description of how OSEP evaluated and scored the state's data. Next slide, please. How the department will make determinations in 2020. There will be no changes to how the department will make determinations this year. We will continue to use the results data and the compliance data as laid out in the how the department made determination document that will be issued and is actually pretty much the same as the document that we released last year. As you know, we had signaled in last year's determination letter that OSEP was considering making changes to how we use the data under specific factors in making our determinations. We appreciate all of the feedback that we received as it will continue to inform our decision making in future years. But for this year, the process will remain the same. Next slide, please. What states can expect in terms of the public documents. The final APR documents will be posted on the IDEA website by mid-August. The hyperlink is within the PowerPoint slide deck. These final documents will include the SPP APR, all the OSEP attachments that I covered on the previous slide, all state attachments that are accessible in accordance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, and the state's determination letter. Any attachments that states submitted as part of the APR that are not accessible in accordance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act cannot be posted on the department's website. So as such, states will be required to post any SPP APR related attachment that was not 508 compliant on their own state websites in order to fulfill the requirement to make APRs available to the public. We will be providing more information about this in the near future. Any state that did submit a non-508 compliant document, that will be indicated in the introduction section of your APR under the OSEP response. And then we will be working with PSC to send out targeted guidance to any state that this applies to in order to provide further instruction regarding which documents were not compliant and which documents states would be responsible for posting on their own websites. Next slide, please. In terms of follow-up after determinations are issued, no later than the week of June 29th, states should expect to hear from your OSEP state lead about scheduling a follow-up call to discuss determinations and answer any questions you may have related to OSEP's analysis. Separately, over the next couple of months, OSEP will also be reaching out to you to schedule calls in order to provide feedback specific to the state's OSEP submissions. This concludes, next slide please. This concludes the information we prepared to share with you today. We will now open the line up for questions, or if you prefer, you can always post your questions in the chat.
Angela, this is Greg, and I see a question has already come in about one of the updates I provided at the beginning of the meeting, and it's about the period of availability waiver and whether that would apply to discretionary funds, like for instance the SPDG. And I am relatively certain that the answer to that is no. Reading the memo that came out very carefully, it talks about the federal fiscal year 2018 IDEA Part B grant award funds. So that's pretty specific to that year, and those would just be your 611 and 619 grant award funds. Jennifer
Excellent.
Reed, do we see other questions coming in?
We did. We just had another question come in. We have someone who is interested in wanting to know if the waiver, if the waiver applicable to only Part B or Part C funds.
It is applicable to Part B funds. The request would be made by the SEA on behalf of the state and its local school districts.
Excellent. The next question that came in, is there an option for the Part C lead agencies to request a 1-year extension in using funds under Tydings?
That's a great question. We're looking into that right now. The waiver provision, as it's narrowly interpreted, does not provide that opportunity, but that is under discussion here at the department, and we'll be sure to follow up with you once we arrive at a conclusion on that. But thanks for asking. Lots of interest in the waivers. I think last time I checked, we had already received something like 15 requests.
I see a question, and this is Angela, in the chat related to the DocX. I'll go ahead and try to take this question. This question is wanting us to confirm that the DocX is for SEA internal use and that OSEP will be creating a PDF document that will be accessible along with all other documents for public view. And we can post a link to that information from our SEA website, as we have done in the past with grads. And that is correct. The DocX that you will see when after determinations are issued and the tool opens back up, that DocX is for the SEA or the lead agency purposes. And what you will receive, what will be available in August will be the final PDF with all of the OSEP documents, all of the state documents that are 508 compliant, the matrix, the rubric, etc. And that will be on the IDEA website, and you can link to that on your state website for your stakeholders. I also see a question about the Secretary's IDEA waiver recommendation for Part C to B transition. The question is about if we are aware of a timeline for when that will be reviewed by Congress. I will punt that question to my boss, Greg.
You know, the department had 30 days from, I think it was March 26th was the actual legislation. So the department did submit its waiver its request timely, but I don't think Congress is under any such deadline. So we don't know if the answer is we don't really know when to anticipate action on the Secretary's request.
This is Christine Pilgrim. Greg, I think there's also another question that Angela, Jennifer, and I would punt to you regarding discussing any changes due to COVID for monitoring next year. I know you spoke a little bit about DMS in the beginning, but if you're able to provide any additional information.
Yeah, I mean, I will provide what I will go on record as saying is total speculation. But, you know, we need to be, me and OSEP need to be flexible. We need to consider the conditions on the ground, situations that are going on in states, in local EIS programs and local school districts as we, you know, initiate our new monitoring proposal. Without stealing too much of our thunder and our rollout, I do want to say that in the plan that we have during the first year of implementation, most of our work will be preparatory rather than on-site or virtual monitoring. So I think that provides us with a little breathing room to kind of ease into this, even when there is, even when there are additional repercussions from the pandemic. I know, just kind of looking at the news headlines that came out a few minutes ago, that you know, there are a number of locations where there are new spikes in the coronavirus, and I think this will go on sporadically until we have a vaccine. So we're, you know, anticipating that there will be variable degrees of schools opening, local EIS providers being able to provide services from locality to locality, and we're just going to have to be aware of that and sensitive to that as we go forward with our monitoring.
Hi, this is Angela. I previously answered the question about the final PDF, and my colleague Christine sent me a private text message and said that I misspoke slightly. So Christine, I'm going to have you clarify about the final product that will be available on the website.
So thanks, Angela. She made it sound much more ominous than it really was. I just wanted to clarify that the external version, the publicly posted APR that we will have on our website, won't be in PDF format. It will be a docx. The difference between that external facing docx and what you see in EMAPS when you as the SCA or the lead agency folks go in to take a look is that the public facing version will not have all of those cascading questions that don't apply, where you have all of those X's, etc. Those will all be removed, and any 508 attachments that you submitted to us will be embedded within the proper place in the APR. So we just wanted to make sure that you understood that it wasn't a PDF that was going to be posted, but it was going to be a final docx, but it was going to be without all of those X's, cascading questions that don't apply, etc.
Christine, do you want to go ahead and take the 120-day public posting question as well?
Sure. So we have a question about if there's going to be a delay of the requirement for the APR to be posted within 120 days publicly, since it could be about mid-August before we have the 508 compliance docs posted. There has not been any discussion about delaying that requirement on our end. I think we recognize that when we had grads, certainly we posted all of the documents publicly, and states were able quite easily to just link to those. So having to wait a little while for our public documents might have an impact, but certainly states can also post earlier than that. I would say the other, and Greg, please feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts on this, because we hadn't gotten this far in our discussions yet. As Angela mentioned, I think we've been working day and night doing final content checks, getting everything ready for determinations, and the whole 508 compliance documents and what the department is going to be able to post and not post certainly has taken up quite a bit of time on our end to try to make sure that we're meeting requirements and giving states as much as they're used to as we can. But Greg, do you have thoughts on a delay in requirement?
And I will confirm that Christine and Angela and Jennifer have been burning the candle at both ends to get this work done. We have not had discussions about this. If your state anticipates a problem with that, I would urge you to talk to your OSEP state lead, and he or she will elevate that comment up to us. And we certainly don't want, we wouldn't penalize the state if the problem was attributable to us not being able to make the documents available to you in a timely fashion.
I also see a question in the chat, and I actually might defer this question as well. I'm doing a really good job at punting questions to Jennifer Wolfsheimer, because you've been working most closely with the team around 508. The question is related to the final version of the APRs that will be posted for public release on our IDEA website. Will those documents, what level of 508 compliance will those documents meet? For example, will those documents meet the bar of no errors or warnings, or is it possible that there would be errors, no errors, but still have warnings? Do we know the answer to that question?
For the doc X's, they would be completely 508 compliant. For the attachments, we haven't given that distinction yet, but there would be no errors.
So for the APR and all of the OSEP documents, there will be no errors and no warnings.
Correct.
For the state attachments,
we're still in the process of going through.
Yep.
Yes.
Hope that is helpful. If folks think that final information would be valuable to have, we can certainly make sure that we're communicating that in some way as it gets closer to determinations and the final decisions. I have a feeling we'll still be having 508 discussions even after determinations between, June 25th and when the documents are finally publicly available. But we'd be happy to communicate the final information around that when we have it.
And this is Christine again. If there are any questions that are not top of mind yet, but you think of them later on, please don't hesitate to reach out to Greg and he can funnel them down to us.
And Jennifer Reed, this is all being recorded, is that right?
That is correct. This is all being recorded and it will be posted to the, I believe, the Grads 360 site where it is normally posted, along with the PowerPoint deck as well.
Thank you so much.
And we don't have any other questions that have come in, Greg, just so you know.
Well, given that, then I think we will wrap this up and give you all a little bit of time back. I want to thank my co-presenters, Angela Tanner-Dean, Jennifer Wolfsheimer, and Christine Pilgrim, for walking us through this material today, and also to Jennifer Reed for her excellent job at running our webinar and facilitating this whole process. If there's anything that you missed, feel free to access the recording of this, which will be up in a few days, and you can review the material that we have. Again, if you have any questions about any of this material, including the information that I previewed at the beginning of the call, you could either follow up directly with me or go through your OSEP assigned state lead. So thank you all very much, and I think this will conclude our call.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.